The drama surrounding the Indiana Fever has reached a point where the excitement of a historic moment now collides with a question that refuses to go away. Inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, everything about the environment suggests that women's basketball is entering a new golden era. The arena that hosts the Fever has become one of the most electric venues in the sport. Fans line up hours before games. Merchandise stands struggle to keep jerseys in stock. A $78 million practice facility is rising nearby, a symbol of a franchise that suddenly looks like it belongs at the center of the WNBA's future. And at the heart of it all stands the most recognizable name in the sport today, Caitlin Clark. Yet beneath all the energy and attention, the roster that is supposed to support that generational star currently consists of just 3 players under contract. Clark remains the centerpiece. Aliyah Boston is locked in as one of the league's brightest young frontcourt talents, and a third name quietly fills out the short list of players still signed to the team. Everyone else is gone, at least for now. The rest of the roster exists in a strange limbo created by expiring deals, pending negotiations, and an off-season that has suddenly become one of the most important in franchise history. At the center of that uncertainty sits a veteran who has defined the Fever's identity for nearly a decade. Kelsey Mitchell has been the emotional engine of the team through rebuilding seasons and playoff pushes alike. An 8-year veteran and 3-time All-Star, Mitchell has carried the Fever through some of the most difficult stretches in the franchise's modern era. But recently, when asked about the future, she described the situation with a single word that instantly caught the attention of every fan in Indiana. She called it scary. That word echoed through the Fever community because it revealed how fragile this moment really is. Only a year earlier, Indiana appeared to be building something stable and sustainable. The organization had made a bold decision by bringing back Stephanie White as head coach, returning a respected leader to the franchise where she had already built deep roots as both a player and coach. White arrived with momentum after strong seasons with the Connecticut Sun, and her hiring signaled that Indiana wanted to compete immediately rather than simply develop young talent. The front office followed that decision with a wave of veteran acquisitions designed to accelerate the team's progress. Dewana Bonner brought championship experience and leadership. Natasha Howard added elite defensive versatility and playoff credibility. Sophie Cunningham arrived through a trade that strengthened the team's perimeter depth. Combined with Mitchell's scoring ability and the rapidly emerging star power of Clark and Boston, the Fever suddenly looked like one of the most intriguing rosters in the league. But there was a hidden detail inside those roster moves that many people overlooked at the time. Nearly every contract signed during that off-season lasted only 1 year. The strategy was understandable on the surface. With the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement approaching expiration, many players across the league wanted flexibility rather than long-term commitments tied to an outdated financial structure. Short deals allowed athletes to position themselves for what they hoped would be a more lucrative market in the near future. In Indiana's case, however, that strategy created a ticking clock. The team had not built a long-term roster foundation. It had assembled a 1-year coalition designed to compete immediately while waiting for the league's financial future to become clearer. The gamble worked for a while. The Fever posted a strong 24-20 record and reached the postseason with a surge of national attention surrounding Clark's rookie season. For the first time in years, Indiana felt like a legitimate contender. Then the season ended in heartbreak. After defeating the Atlanta Dream in the opening round, the Fever ran into the powerhouse Las Vegas Aces in the semifinals. The series pushed Indiana to its limits. Clark battled injuries late in the run. Several key players missed time. And during the decisive game, Mitchell collapsed physically after pushing her body beyond its limits, later receiving a diagnosis of rhabdomyolysis, a rare and serious condition caused by extreme muscle breakdown. The emotional and physical toll of that series symbolized the fragility of the roster itself. A team held together by short-term contracts had pushed all the way to the edge. But once the season ended, the structure holding everything together began to disappear. Free agency arrived, and suddenly nearly every major contributor to the Fever's playoff run became available to the rest of the league. While the players navigated that uncertainty, the responsibility for the next move ultimately fell to the man who has controlled basketball in Indianapolis for more than 4 decades. Herb Simon, the billionaire businessman, purchased the Indiana Pacers in 1983 alongside his brother and later brought The Fever into the Pacers' sports and entertainment umbrella when the WNBA expanded. For years, Simon has been known as one of the most stable owners in professional sports, keeping basketball in Indianapolis through economic ups and downs that forced other franchises to relocate. But Simon has also developed a reputation for cautious spending and calculated decision-making. Pacers fans have long debated whether that careful approach helped preserve the franchise or prevented it from reaching its full potential. The same conversation now surrounds the Fever at the exact moment when the team appears poised to capitalize on unprecedented momentum. A new figure has entered the ownership picture as well. In 2023, billionaire investor Stephen Rales purchased a significant minority stake in the Pacers organization. Rales built his fortune through the industrial giant Danaher Corporation and later became known in Hollywood through his film production company Indian Paintbrush, which helped produce films like The Grand Budapest Hotel and Moonrise Kingdom. His entry into the Pacers ownership group introduced a powerful new voice into the organization, one that many observers believe sees the Fever's current moment as a rare investment opportunity. However, Rales remains a minority owner, and the final decisions about spending and roster construction still pass through Simon. That reality leaves the franchise in a delicate position. The Fever possess the league's most commercially powerful player and one of the most engaged fan bases in sports. They play in a city that loves basketball as deeply as any market in the country. The league itself is experiencing explosive growth fueled by record television ratings and a massive new media agreement involving companies such as Disney and NBC. Yet the roster surrounding Clark currently consists of only a handful of players. The rest must be rebuilt through a chaotic free agency market that coincides with the arrival of expansion teams like the Toronto Tempo and the revived Portland Fire. Both new franchises will enter the league eager to attract talent, pulling from the same limited pool of available players that Indiana hopes to retain. That is why the word Mitchell use resonates so strongly now. Scary does not simply describe the uncertainty of one player's contract. It reflects the reality that a championship window built around Caitlin Clark may depend on decisions that have not yet been made. The Fever possess the pieces to become the most influential franchise in women's basketball. But momentum in sports rarely waits forever. The question hovering over Indianapolis is whether ownership will treat this moment as a temporary surge of popularity or as the foundation for something permanent. Building a long-term contender requires investment, stability, and commitment beyond a single season. Renting talent for a year may produce excitement, but it rarely produces dynasties. For the Fever, the difference between those two paths could define the next decade of the franchise, and that leaves fans with one final thought to consider as the offseason unfolds. Should Indiana double down on its investment around Caitlin Clark and build a long-term championship roster? Or is the cautious strategy that has defined ownership for decades still the right approach? Will Kelsey Mitchell remain the heartbeat of the Fever, or will the uncertainty surrounding free agency push her toward a new chapter elsewhere? Share your perspective on what the Fever should do next.